The next essential reality is the individual. Individual, we have a body, we also have a mind. But more than the body and the mind, we can say we have a conscious self, or we are the conscious self within the body, within the mind, who is controlling the body and the mind, hopefully controlling the body and mind, also affected by or controlled by the body and mind. Our individuality is a wonderful gift. It's a gift for ourselves. We can be the person that we are, develop ourselves to become what we're capable of being. And our individuality is a gift to human society. It's a gift to our family, it's a gift to our community. We value individuals. In any group, we value the individuals in the group, and human society as a whole values great individuals, great scientists, Newton, Descartes, Einstein, great spiritual leaders, Christ, Buddha, Muhammad, Krishna, Lord Chaitanya. In different areas, same in the entertaining arts, the great film stars, the great musicians, the great rock musicians, the great conductors. So we value great individuals who've made an outstanding contribution in society, made a contribution in our lives, made a contribution in society. Individuality is everywhere valued. Not only human beings, but animals also. They're great racehorses. They're great dogs. In mythology, there are great other, like Brer Rabbit is a great hero as well. Garuda is a hero. Jambavan and Hanuman, they're great heroes. And anyone who's had pets, they know that every animal is an individual. Horses act in one way and guinea pigs act in another way. And within the group of guinea pigs, every guinea pig is different. Every horse is different. Every cow even is different. So individuality is everywhere. It's a great gift. It's also a challenge. Because some individuals, they have a great effect in society, but not for good. So for example, Hitler is a typical example of somebody that everyone agrees had a very, a malevolent effect on human society, and the many others. So there those who use their individuality in a very destructive way, and those who use their individuality in a very beneficial way. So it can be either. And it's a matter of choice which way we go. The reality is that the conscious self, the individual conscious self, is acting within the body, within the mind, and we have the ability to make choices. We have the ability to develop our potential. There are different levels of needs and different levels of potential. Abraham Maslow, he pointed out that you have needs of the body, needs for survival, needs for well-being, needs for self-security, needs for self-esteem, and then need for self-actualization as well. In spiritual cultures, there's an understanding that we have a need for self-realization, not just self-actualization within the material world, physical world, but also self-realization where we actually realize the essential conscious nature of the self and ultimately completely transcend the physical world and the physical environment altogether. So these are different levels of the self, and it shows that we have needs corresponding to the body, generally things that we need to have, and then we have needs corresponding to the mind. These are our psychological needs, emotional needs, and our social needs also. And these are generally, we can say, doing needs, or affecting the mind. And then we have being needs, what we need to be. Sometimes we get judged on what we do, and we forget that we're not just human doings, but we're human beings. And that phrase, human being, means that there's an existential core. We need to know really, who am I? What is the meaning of my life? And am I fulfilling that meaning? Or am I becoming distracted by trying to fulfill my having needs and my doing needs, and the needs of the body and the needs of the mind? This individuality is present in all individuals, human beings as well, and there's also potential. There's not only needs, but there's potential. So if we react to our needs, we get one lifestyle. But if we act proactively, for example, instead of just thinking about curing disease, we think about acting and eating in order to promote actual physical well-being, biological well-being. Eat a healthy diet, take the vitamins, take all the different aspects of a healthy diet, instead of just taking medicine when we get sick. This is a completely different approach. Similarly, if we act proactively so that we have a psychological well-being, so that we're fit psychologically as well, not just physically fit, but psychologically fit, this is also a different approach to life, and spiritually as well. Now we see that human society is in spiritual crisis. But many individuals, they don't wait until they come to that crisis before they engage in spiritual welfare activities. So they're engaged in spiritual realization anyway, regardless of what's going on around them. Consciousness is real. I explained this in the previous module. We see that the body is changing, but I, the self, I'm not changing. Or the I-ness isn't changing. My personality may be changing, the body's changing, personality, everything is changing. My conception of life is changing. But the I-ness, the person who has the body, who has the conception, is not changing. That the fact that I exist is not changing. And even scientists, they agree. For example, the famous neurophysiologist Sherrington, he wrote, "Don't we think about I as a cause within the body, within, in as much as it is at the core of the spatial world, which our perception seems to look at from our body. The body seems a zone immediately around that central core. This I belongs more immediately to our awareness than does even the spatial world around us, for it's directly experienced. It is the self." So Sherrington's pointing out here directly, he's a very famous scientist, and he's pointing directly that even the body is seen as external to the self, the conscious self. Our individuality is so essential it can't be denied. Because even if I want to deny it, still I have to exert my individual influence in order to deny it. So it's self-evident, and also it's undeniable, especially the individuality of the self. We explained this before. If I want to explain the self, or I want to deny the self, but so that I is engaged in denying or affirming. There's a question that, what is the difference between human beings and animals? Human beings are individuals, and animals are also individuals. Animals also have emotions. Anyone who has pets or keeps animals, they know that animals have emotions. So what is the real difference? There's an idea in society that human beings have souls, whereas animals don't have souls. But if you ask the person who has that belief, what is the soul? Generally speaking, they'll be hard put to answer that question. But it's self-evident, actually, that the same conscious entity is there in the animal as it is in the human being. Animals also have self-existence, they also have knowledge, they also have the desire for satisfaction. So it's clear that animals, and even lower forms of life, so-called lower forms of life, they have the same basic makeup. There's a conscious self, and then there's a body. Only the state of consciousness, typical of an animal, for example, is not so high as the state of consciousness in the human being. So a human being can think, oh, that I'm superior to the animal, so I can mistreat them. But actually, the state of consciousness in the human being is supposed to imply responsibility. So it's not that a human being, by virtue of his greater strength, greater influence, is supposed to dominate the animals, but rather he's supposed to use that to steward the resources so that animals also get benefit. It raises the question too, are human beings justified in killing animals for eating? If we take care of our own individuality, then why shouldn't we take care of another's individuality? If we put ourselves and the others should, we see that I want to survive just as much as they do. In fact, this is the reason why, to satisfy my tongue, or why people, to satisfy their tongues, they're engaged in slaughter of helpless animals, innocent animals. So this, then we have to consider the ethical and spiritual aspects of this. What are the results of acting in this way? All the great religions recommend that we should refrain from killing animals and that we should eat vegetarian food. This is specific, it's spelled out in the very first part of Genesis for Christians. It's spelled out in Buddhism, in Islam also, Judaism is also, because they're also accepting the Torah, the Old Testament in the Bible. So all the great religions, they recommend a vegetarian diet. From the point of view of health, it makes complete sense, because the human body is typically, it's made for digesting fruit and nuts. It's not made for digesting meat. There's a world of difference between the body of meat eaters and the body of vegetarians. For example, in meat eaters, the digestive tract is very short, not much greater than the length of the body, so the meat passes through rather than remaining in the body and creating poison. The intestine of a vegetarian animal is very long to give more time for digesting the foodstuff. So a human being also, it has the digestive tract of a vegetarian, the teeth of a vegetarian rather than of a meat eater. There are many other characteristics. It is clear that the human body is designed for digesting fruit, nuts and vegetarian foodstuff rather than meat. There's the ethical consideration. There's the environmental consideration. That by mistreating animals and setting up slaughterhouses, this is a tremendous drain on resources of grain, resources of foodstuff, which can be far better used in the vegetarian lifestyle. And also, the slaughterhouses is a tremendous source of pollution. The feces from the animals, the gases from the animals, they contribute to acid rain, they contribute to what?
Global warming.
Global warming, yeah. And so from any point of view, the vegetarian diet it makes more sense. From a karmic point of view, meat eating is a terrible drain. It's a terrible weight on the individual and weight on society. If we see the conditions, right throughout history, thinkers have pointed out the connection between war and meat eating. And if we see the conditions in which animals are kept in the factory farms, and then you see what happens in, for example, the concentration camps, a thinking person must see the connection here. That what goes around comes around. How we treat other beings. Then, in order to train the soul to steward the resources and to be responsible for other forms of life, then somehow or other we'll have to receive that form of suffering in order to understand for ourselves. Another issue that arises here: at what point does a baby become a human being? Now we're looking at the issue of abortion. So, common thought at the moment is that the unborn baby becomes a human being relatively late in its development. That prior to that, it's just a piece of tissue, and there's no more harm in removing a baby from the womb than there is in having a tooth out, or amputating a finger if it's necessary. But actually, it's clear that this is right from the very moment of conception, this is a new individual. And especially in the case of human beings, that individual has the potential and the gift to become a unique human individual. So it's not just the same as cutting off a lifeless piece of flesh. That is an individual right from the moment of conception. And according to the Vedic point of view, the conscious living entity, conscious Atma, the conscious self, at the moment of conception, it comes into the developing egg, and from that point on, that is an individual. And to kill it is murder. And abortion in modern society is genocide. So this is another very heavy karmic weight on the individuals involved and also on society as a whole. In the Vedas, it's said that the living entity, the Atma, the conscious self, is riding in the chariot of the body. This chariot is offered by material nature. The intelligence is the charioteer, and the mind is the reins controlling the horses. So the senses are the horses of the chariot. So these senses are dragging the chariot. The living entity we're situated on the chariot of the body, and the senses are dragging us here and there. If the chariot is out of control, in other words, if the living entity is not controlling the senses through the mind, then the chariot may go anywhere, and the result may be disastrous. So therefore, in the Vedas it's recommended that we should not try to be the enjoyer of the senses, the enjoyer of the material world through the senses, but rather we should control the senses. We should have respect for all life, and we should promote self-realization. This is the standard of human life according to the Vedas. Modern society, people in modern society, they're proud of the advancement of modern civilization. But according to the viewpoint of the Vedas, the Vedic viewpoint, that if one is not engaged in spiritual realization, if he's not living in harmony with the divine principles, then, although he has the body of a human being, but the consciousness is of an animal. So that phrase is called Dvipada Pasha. It's a two-legged animal. And the injunction of the Vedas is that we should live a human life by we have superior judgment and superior initiative, so we should use these to develop our human potential, our conscious potential, and rise above the limitations of material nature, rise above the base instincts which govern the animals. So what is the next essential reality? So we consider the individual. We've seen body, mind, and a conscious self. We've seen what the conscious self does, but now the question is, what is the conscious self?